Hey everyone, thank you for taking time out of your day to watch this week's message. We believe that God has given us a message just for you. Hey, do me a favor. If you enjoy this message at any point, engage with us. You can like, you can share, give us an emoji, a thumbs up, fire, because it's so important that we have a church that is engaged in the message. Also, let us know where you're watching from. It's so much fun for us to look back during the week and kind of count all the states, even countries that are watching this message. And if we have blessed you in any way, let us know how much of a blessing this is to you and your family. Again, thank you so much. It is an honor that you would take time this week to watch this message, and we hope that it is a big inspiration and blessing in your life. Praise. I do want to welcome and greet all those watching online. It is an honor. It's very humbling for me week after week to see you participating. Do let us know where you're watching from. Stay engaged with the message today. Give us the emojis, the likes, the thumbs up, the fist bumps, the fire, whatever it is to participate in the message today, because it's so much better when you participate in it. We are in a series of talks, a collection of sermons entitled Faux Walls. How many of you have been enjoying this series? Maybe somewhat reluctantly, because the Holy Spirit, I believe, has been speaking to you as He has been me. You do understand that these things are just as hard to preach as they are to listen to, because I have to, work through this in my own soul before I can somewhat give it to you. So I've been having to have some hard conversations with self. You ever had any hard conversations with self? You're like, self, you better get your act together. Anybody ever said that? The title of today's message is Free to See, Free to Be. Free to see, free to be. We're going to start with a little self-evaluation. If that makes everyone uncomfortable, well, that is the goal. You can admit that coming to church is a little bit uncomfortable in and of itself. So my goal today is to make everybody equally uncomfortable so we can move forward together. And how I'm going to do that is by asking you a question or a series of questions, and it is, when did we start lying to ourselves? Early this morning for you, Johnny C. And when do we stop lying to ourselves? As John just told us, I think it's probably earlier than we think, and it's probably later than we would hope. Somewhere between our birth and our burial. But here's the thing. We are pretty good at catching other people when they're lying, aren't we? But we're not so good at catching ourselves when we are lying. Now, I don't mean lying to other people. We genuinely know when we are lying to other people. What I'm referring to is when we start lying to ourselves. And although lying to other people is not excusable, let me be very clear on that, it is at least understandable. Because sometimes it does appear, and let me be clear, it does appear that there's a short-term gain to lying, such as if your wife asks you, do I look big in these pants? You know you're just trying to protect yourself and everybody involved. It does appear sometimes, again, I'll be clear, that there's a short-term gain protecting yourself, or you understand protecting other people. I will be clear again, there's never a long-term gain to lying. It is inexcusable, but we can all agree it is at least understandable. But why would we deceive ourselves? Why would I lie to me? It's totally ridiculous and completely confusing. After all, how do you deceive yourself? How many selves are there? And here's how good we are at this lying to ourselves thing. Many of you are thinking to yourself right now, Rev, I don't lie to myself. How could you imply that I ever lie to myself? I mean, it's been a great collection of talks, but these messages have been for everybody else. They weren't really meant for me to begin with. And here's how good I know that you are at lying to yourself is you don't even know how good you're at it because you just lied to yourself. But you didn't call it a lie. You called it something else. You called it yours a reason. And the reason we have reasons is because that is reasonable. And we don't want to be unreasonable because we work with somebody that's unreasonable. Or we have friends that are unreasonable. We have a parent that is unreasonable. We have a child that is unreasonable. We have a spouse who is unreasonable. So we decide that when we do something that we know we shouldn't do, or we don't do something we should do, we come up with reasons. Can I break that down for you? The reason I was late to work today was traffic. I mean, I did get up a little bit late. I did goof around a little bit, and I certainly went down the Facebook and Instagram rabbit hole. And then after a while, I looked up, and oh my goodness, I was running late. But the real reason I was late was traffic. I'm going to stick with traffic because traffic sounds reasonable. The reason I won't do that is because of my upbringing, or my Enneagram number, or my temperament. Yeah, I know that I can be a little bit stubborn, and I don't really like change and don't want to be told what to do, but that sounds like I'm being unreasonable, so I'll just say it's the way that God wired me or made me, because that is more reasonable. I know I can be a jerk, or I can be a little short-tempered like my dad, and but work is really hard, and I'm an Enneagram 8, so I have a very good reason. You see, you have a reason in your mind why you don't eat better. You have a reason in your mind why you don't exercise more. You have a reason in your mind why you blow up when somebody says certain things, why you continually lose your temper, or why you go nuclear radio silent. You have a reason. You have a reason why you're leaving. You have a reason why you're staying. And if I were to ask you, why do you do, and fill a blank, and everybody has a blank, why do you blank? Well, you have a reason. But the reason that you would give me, or the reason that you would give yourself, may not actually be the reason, because the actual reason is a secret. And this is a crazy part. It's a secret you're keeping from yourself, so you don't have to face the uncomfortable truth about yourself. Now, doesn't this all sound ridiculous? Doesn't it? I mean, when you listen to all this, like, that is utterly ridiculous. There's no way that could possibly be me. And instead of telling ourselves the truth about ourselves, we just make stuff up. We have created and manufactured these excuses, and we are disguising our excuses as reasons because we all want to be reasonable. But maybe, just maybe, we should call it like it is. Maybe, just maybe, we should call it as other people see it, because I hate to break this to you, the people around you, the people that know you, the people that love you, they know when you're lying. And the reason I know that they know is because you know when the people around you are lying. Am I right? Yeah. Today we're in the third part of our series, Faux Walls, and we've been talking about every week that there are certain things we should carry with us from season to season, and there are certain things that we should leave behind after a certain season. And one of the things that we're talking about that we should leave behind is our excuses. Because excuses are like faux walls. They distract us from the life that God wants us to live. And from a distance, they look real. They look like actual obstacles. But we all know that the closer that we begin to get, and the more that we begin to push up against these, faux walls, the more we begin to see them for what they really are. They're not real. My becauses are not the real cause. They're just something I've created in my own mind, and everybody can see it but you. The reason I can't stop, the reason I don't start, the reason I don't go back, well, the reason is, but again, the closer we get, the more that we realize they aren't real reasons. They're just excuses. They're just faux walls. And over time, our excuses become our becauses, the thing that we retreat to or hide behind. Why don't you? Well, because Why do you always? Well, because. When she shows up, why do you always do that? Well, because. When he says that, why do you always say in response? Well, because. We all have a because, but the because is not the real cause. It's an excuse masquerading as a cause. And let me be clear again, we all do this. This is not a you thing, it's not a me thing, this is a we thing. So in this series, we've been asking and regurgitating this question every single week. There's a big question that we're asking. Is it possible that you're missing out because you've walled yourself in? Is it possible that you're living behind a faux wall that is keeping things or people or opportunities out? Is it impossible that you have constructed walls from things that people have said about you, or the way that people labeled you, or the way that people treated you? Is it possible that you've invented an excuse as to why you do what you do, why you react or overreact? And the reason why we're talking about this in church is because if we are not careful, our excuses become the Lord of our life. And for Christians or for church people, there is a direct relationship between our excuses and our ability to fully follow Jesus, because we cannot follow our excuses in Jesus at the same time, because Jesus said no man can serve two masters. And here's what's cool, and this is what we're going to talk about today. When you follow Jesus through the Gospels, we continually see him bringing light into dark places. But the problem is, light shown in dark places can be threatening. It can be terrifying or embarrassing. In our entire life, we've had these excuses as to why we won't or why we can't. But the truth is, we're just afraid. The truth is, we're really just insecure. The truth is, we're terrified of what we might feel when we are forced to change. So here's what I want you to write down. Light can be terrifying, but light can also be liberating. Light can be terrifying, but it can also be liberating. You see, lies, especially the ones that we tell ourselves about ourselves, will always hold us back, because lies will leave you in the dark. Let me tell you how you know this is true. Because you can see the same thing in other people. May I explain that to you and break that down just a moment? Has there ever been a moment in your time where you've looked at other people, you've watched other people, you've listened to other people? Maybe that's at work, maybe it's a teenager, maybe it's a young adult, you've got a teenager that's in their 20s, maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's a parent. And if you've ever had this moment where you say something like this, can't they see what they're doing to their future? Can't they see what they're doing to their reputation? Can't they see what they're doing to the career? Can't she see what she's doing to our marriage? Can't he see what he's doing to his health? Can't they see what they're doing to our finances? Can't you see what you're doing? Have you ever had a moment where you've thought that, or you've said something like this? Anybody in here today? Or you've said about them, they just can't see it. And it's almost as if they're wandering around in darkness, and you are looking at their life saying, I wish that they could see it. And if you've ever had the faith or the audacity to have one of those conversations like, can you not see this? Or why do you keep doing it? They'll say, well, the reason is I do this because. But you know they aren't real reasons. They aren't the real cause. They're just excuses. And if that's true of them, then maybe, just maybe, it's true of me, and it's true of you. And maybe, just maybe, we can't see it. But as you follow Jesus through the Gospels, he presents us with a powerful, life-changing invitation. Lies will hold you back, but the truth will set you free. In John's Gospel, we're going to be reading from John chapter 8 today. Jesus is teaching, and he gives a brilliant display of wisdom and wit. It is so amazing the way that Jesus responds to this. So let me kind of set you up, because we're not going to read the full story. There was a woman caught in adultery. You remember that. the Pharisees, the religious scribes, they bring this woman who is caught in adultery to Jesus. When they bring her to Jesus and they tell their scenario to him, Jesus bends down and he begins to write in the ground. Took his finger, he's writing the dirt and the dust. We don't know what it is that he was writing, but many people like to speculate that it was maybe a list of the laws or as a list of sins. After he writes for a period of time, he then stands up and says, "Let he who is without sin, let him cast the first stone." And then he didn't say anything else. He just bends down and he starts writing again. Now, most theologians at this particular moment think that maybe he's writing down their sins. Because one by one, starting with the oldest, because their list of sins would have been the longest, one by one, starting with the oldest, the people began to leave. After they are gone, Jesus stands up and he says, "Woman, where are your accusers?" He said, "Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more." It was absolutely brilliant. All right, shortly thereafter that moment, the beloved apostle John wrote that Jesus said this. Right after this, he said, "I am the light of the world." Who says things like that? I am the light of the world. It's no wonder that people smirked, they shook their head, and they walked away. It's really arrogant. Unless it's true. Because what if Jesus really came to lead the people of this world out of darkness into the light? What if Jesus came to really light up our excuses and expose them for what they truly are so that you and I could become everything God has created us to be? Everything that God has called us to be to reach our full potential so that we can get to the other side of our faux wall. And instead of lying to ourselves or living shut down and locked out, that we would start being honest with ourselves. And this is so important because the audience that what Jesus was speaking to, the religious people, that is exactly what they were doing. They were lying to themselves and they were hiding behind this religious faux wall. And Jesus exposed it. And he began to get past it and say, "Listen, you're no better than she is." Here's what he says. "Whoever follows me, mv.church, whoever becomes a disciple of me, whoever mimics me, whoever imitates me will never walk in darkness but will have the light of life." Now again, this is so important. Jesus is inviting people, as we've talked about week after week. He's not inviting people just to believe in him. Even James tells us the devils and the demons believe in him. He's not just asking him to believe things about him. He's asking him to follow him. In other words, Jesus doesn't need any more admirers. Admiring Jesus will make no difference in your life. Admiring Jesus will make no difference in your community or relationships. That is why Jesus is so direct. "I want you to follow me. And whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." Jesus said, "Hey, listen, I want to light up the dark places. I want to expose the things that are keeping you back from fully engaging with your family, fully engaging with your potential, fully overcoming your fears and insecurities. And for that to happen, you're going to have to follow me and make me Lord of your life." Now, when he said this, there were all kinds of religious people taking notes because, that's what the super spiritual do. There's a special place in heaven for all the note takers. I'm not judging you. I'm just telling you God in heaven is telling you you're going to go to hell if you're not writing things down. I'm just kidding. I already shocked you guys last week by saying that. I'm just teasing you. But they were trying to trap him. They were taking notes. So John tells us that when he said this, verse 13, the Pharisees challenged him. "Here you are, appearing as your own witness. So your testimony is not valid." In other words, you're claiming things about yourself, and you can't claim things about yourself. That makes you crazy. But the amazing thing is, the crowd didn't leave. So later in this same conversation, we're going to skip down to verse 31. So go all the way down, John chapter 8, down to verse 31. He says, "If," everyone say if. If, it's the two-letter, maybe the most powerful word, one of the most powerful words in the English language. "If you hold to my teaching, you really are my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will. Did you know that if appears in the Bible 1,521 times, 1,029 times in the Old Testament, 492 times in the New Testament? If marks a conditional clause. If Jesus says you organize your life around my teaching, if you will do what I'm teaching you to do, if you will embrace me as Lord, then and only then will you be my disciple or one of my followers. And if you will do what I ask you to do, if you will embrace what I've asked you to embrace, if and only then you will know the truth, you'll recognize what is true, you'll stop making excuses, you'll quit rationalizing, and that truth will set you free. What will it set me free? It will set me free to see. To see what? To see yourself the way God sees you. To see your potential the way that God sees your potential. To see your family and your loved ones the way that God sees your family. And most importantly, you will see God the way that God really is. Not the God you've conjured up, not the God that you wish that was, but you'll see God the way God really is. He says, I am the light of the world, and I want to be the light of your world. And do you know how his audience responded to this amazing statement? They started making excuses. Let's read verse 33. They answered him, we are Abraham's descendants and have never been as slaves to anyone. Now, how many of you like right there can just stop and be like, wait a minute here. I saw Charleston Heston, and I saw him lead the people of Israel out of Egyptian what? Slavery. So right then there, you're like, I know, and this is my very first time in church, but I know that is a lie. So they say, how can you say that we shall be set free? This is ridiculous. Let's contextualize it to them. They currently have a Roman governor by the name of Pilate. They're not free as Jesus is speaking to them. They're slaves. We'll give a little history. Before the Romans, you had who? The Grecians. You had Alexander the Great. Before the Grecians, you had the Persians. For the Persians, you had the Babylonians, you had the Syrians, the Seleucians, you had the Assyrians, you had the Philistines, you had the Egyptians. They have been slaves almost their entire history. Fun fact. You guys ready for a fun fact? Fun fact, fun fact. Before Moses died in the book of Deuteronomy, for he was not able to go into the promised land, he was able to look over into the promised land. Joshua would lead them. It's actually recorded to us in the book of Deuteronomy that Moses sent this to the people of Israel. He said, when it comes to how you treat your slaves, you need to make sure you treat your slaves kindly because remember, you were once slaves in Egypt too. So this whole idea of them saying, we've never been slaves to anyone is ridiculous. But how easy is it for us to criticize that? But we are all equally guilty. You're a slave to your excuses. And you're sitting here saying, well, not you or not me. Maybe her, but not you, not me. And we want to fold our arms and we want to start making these excuses. I've never been a slave to anyone or anything. What do you mean? I need to be set free. I'm an American. I've got all the freedoms I'll ever need. Free from what? And Jesus would respond to us the very same way that he responded to his original audience. We've never been slaves to anyone or anything. He would smile, maybe chuckle and say, really? Very truly I tell you, everyone who sins is a slave to sin. And they're like, wait a minute here. Since when did we start talking about sin? And this is brilliant. Instead of reading them their national history, he now begins to expose their personal history. Because you do remember how the conversation got started, right? They had caught a woman in her sin, her adultery. And Jesus is now looking at them and said, hey, do you ever do what you know you shouldn't do? Yeah. Do you regret doing what you know you shouldn't do? Yeah. Did you get upset with yourself when you did what you knew you shouldn't do? Yeah. Did you say to yourself, I can't believe I did that? Then who made you do it? Because if you say, they made me do it, now you're a slave to them. Or if you say, well, oh, that is good, sister. Write that down. I'm telling you what, that was so good. That was so good. I don't even know who that was from, but I'm telling you, you received that from the Lord today. If y'all would receive things over in the Baptist section over here, you'd be set free like the Pentecostal section over here. I noticed the roles are reversed in worship today, though. Y'all were getting with it over here. Amen. Y'all better get your act together. Sister's making up for all you guys over there. Well, either way, sounds like you're a slave to me. Is it possible that we've deceived ourselves into thinking that we are more free than we actually are? Anybody in here have a food that you'd like to stop eating, but you just can't? Those darn Doritos. Yeah. Cheetos. We even got proof that you've been eating them. Yeah. Anybody have any a reaction that every time the bills, you start so high that your season is going to be great, and then you play the first game of the year, and you just start, Evan, you're throwing, come on, you can be real, right? And it's just an excuse. They lied to me again this year. Bills Mafia, keep going, buddy. Come on. We are more slaves than we think we are, aren't we? We eat things. I just stop there. We drink things. We say things. We do things that we wish we wouldn't do. So Jesus says, I am the light of the world. And I'm inviting you. I'm not going to force you. But I'm inviting you to a bigger and better way of living. And he concludes, if you follow me, if you embrace my teaching, it will allow me to set you free. Because here's what he says, one of the most famous verses. You guys have heard this before. So if the Son sets you free, you'll be free indeed. You'll be free to be, free to see. Recognize your faux walls for what they really are. Free to move forward to the life that God has called you to live. Because he's the light of the world, he can light up your darkness. Write this down. Following Jesus will make your life better. And following Jesus will make you better at life. Jesus wants to lead you to the freedom of acknowledging your fear and insecurity, free to see the way that other people around you wish that you could see, that you genuinely can't see. Because our excuses excuse us from engaging with other people, from loving other people. So may I ask you this question? May I ask you this question? Mama said that was polite to ask. I was going to do it anyway, but I figured I would just ask you. Is it true, and I'm being serious right now, that the people who've hurt you, the people who mistreated you, come on now, let the Spirit speak to you, the ones who lied to you, the people who left you and said they would never leave you, the people who stole your opportunity, isn't it true that every single one of those people, if you were to ask them why they hurt you, why they mistreated you, every single one of them would have a reason for what they did. Every single one of them had manufactured an excuse for what they did. None of them said, or almost none of them said, well, I really had no idea why I did that. They all had a reason, but they couldn't see the truth. And one of the most frustrating things in life is carrying something with you that someone else never saw or can't see. And because they can't see it or haven't seen it, they've never said it. What have they never said? I'm sorry. They've never owned it. And the reason why they've never come clean with you is because they genuinely can't see that they have created a faux wall that they're living behind. And here's the question I'm going to ask you. Do you want to be like that? Do you want there to be people in your life who've been hurt by you because of your excuse or a faux wall that you can't see around? And that is why this is such a big deal for any of us who say that we're a Jesus follower and claim that Jesus is the Lord of our life and our Savior. Faux walls keep us preoccupied with what's ours. They keep us preoccupied with what's owed to us or how we feel. In other words, they enslave us to our self-centeredness. But here's something else that should scare you into change. If you can't see that you're wrong, you'll be wrong your entire life. If you never get to the place where you can see what you currently can't see, if you never get to the place where you allow someone or something to light up the lie you believe about yourself, you could be wrong your entire life, which means you'll excuse your family away, you'll excuse your peace away, you'll excuse your health away, and you'll even excuse your faith away. And Jesus says, maybe there's a better way. I am the way, the truth, and the life. And whoever follows me, the person who gets up every single morning and says, Lord, do what you need to do in me. Reveal to me who I need to forgive, who I need to call, what I need to do, what I need to confess. Whoever stops looking out the window to see what's wrong with other people, but looks in the mirror to see what's wrong with me. Whoever says to Jesus, I know I've got 1,000 reasons not to forgive this person. I know I've got 1,000 reasons to hold on to this anchor, but I want to go through what I've held on to. You will be free. And let me just tell you this, it'll be terrifying, but at least you'll be free. His invitation is so powerful. If you hold on to my teaching, you're going to know the truth, and whether you like it or not, yes, it'll be terrifying, yes, it'll be uncomfortable, yes, you'll have to have some really, really hard conversations that you never imagined having, but on the other side is so liberating. You'll be free, free to see, free to be. The husband, the father, the employer, the employee, the son, the daughter, the grandparent, the citizen that God called you to be, and the world will be such a better place. And when Jesus wrapped up this conversation, verse 59, as of course they did, they picked up stones to stone him. But Jesus hid himself, slipping away from the temple grounds. You get used to the lies you tell yourself. We get used to our excuses. I don't want to focus on what's in my eyes. It's a whole lot easier to look what's in their eyes. I don't want to love them. I don't want to serve them. I don't want to ask for forgiveness. So I'll just stone the light of the world so I can remain safely in the dark. But he slipped away to live another day, to come back and give his life away, because he's the light and the life of the world. I don't know when we begin lying to ourselves, but we all do it. I've been telling myself I'm 6'2" for about 30 years now, and I've come to the realization. And I've come to that realization because you guys are so honest to keep me humble that every time you show up on Sunday, you're like, you're a lot smaller than I thought you would be in purpose. So thank you for humbling me and letting me know I'll never be Michael Jordan. But we all do it. And that's the difficult part about preaching messages like this, because you have to go through and embrace the terrifying and liberating truth about myself. And I lie to myself too. But if you allow the truth to set you free, you will be free indeed, no matter what anybody else has said to you, no matter what anybody else has done to you. So every week I've had you do something practical. The first week I had you to apologize to yourself. The second week I had you to apologize to the person in your life that your excuses have hurt the most. But here's what I'm going to ask you to do today. Have you ever asked anybody what your blind spots are? And don't say, I already know my blind spots. The very definition of a blind spot is you can't see it. Common sense is not common practice. Have you ever asked anybody, what do I not see about me? And what excuses am I holding behind? But for some of you, the Holy Spirit has already been revealing that to you over the past couple weeks. And every week I'm asking you to show that sign of humility. You say, hey, you've been talking to me, Pastor. So is there anybody here today who say, yeah, I'm beginning to see I've got some excuses I've been hiding behind. My reasons aren't real reasons. My becauses are not the real cause. Hey, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed the message as much as I enjoyed giving it to you. We are thankful, really, that you took the time to watch this message. And do us a favor. You can share and you can subscribe to this YouTube channel. It really is a blessing to us to look back and see how many people are engaged with us in real time to what God is doing here. We also ask this: if we made an investment in your life, help us keep food on the table. Become an investment back into our ministry. You can go to mv.church/give and sow a seed into this ministry of what God is doing right here in the desert. We are bearing fruit. It takes people like you sowing seeds in our ministry to keep that fruit and food on the table.